Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Steve Johnson, and I'm going to welcome you to this brief webinar today. It's not going to be long. It's going to be very pointed into to the point. Before I get started, I do want to welcome someone, and that is Michael, who is the newest member of my YouTube channel. Psychotherapy, education, and training. I thank all of those who are members and support me so that I can get this work done. Just today, those members got an email that contains a bunch of handouts for clients. So again, welcome, Michael, our newest member of psychotherapy, education, and training. I want to begin today focusing on a topic that I consider really, really important. And it's not huge, but it's, I think, essential for us to look at. And that is how to kind of deal effectively when we feel disconnected within a relationship. So let me jump into that and get started. Have you ever kind of looked at your partner, or you have a client that says they look at their partner and realize that you're not fighting, there's not a huge amount of conflict, but maybe you just weren't connecting as well as you used to. The connection isn't there. It's not as strong as it used to be. I want to reassure you that that's pretty normal. Many relationships, even solid relationships, go through periods where they feel more like roommates than like loving partners. And that, again, that's pretty common. We don't want that to persist, but we want to be aware of that and then take some effective steps. So I do want to reassure you that you're not odd. Because that doesn't necessarily mean that something is really deeply wrong with your relationship. It may mean that stress has quietly put both of you on autopilot. Kind of the longer you're in a relationship and the relationship becomes more complicated, let's say children enter into the relationship, we're advancing in career, or we've lost a job, we're searching, we've got all kinds of things, we bought a house, stressors can increase. And both of the, and that stress can kind of put you on an unhelpful, what I call autopilot. And what do I mean by that? Well, several things. But I'll get to that a little bit later. I just want to make it really clear that the goal for today's talk is not to solve every relationship problem. Can't do that. We don't have enough time for that. Today's goal is more modest. It's learning how to intentionally reconnect before the disconnection that you're experiencing becomes your new normal. That's what I mean by autopilot. Okay. The autopilot is the disconnection becomes the new normal. But first, why do we disconnect? We disconnect because stress narrows our attention. Autopilot, is what we go into when we're experiencing stress, and that autopilot tries to conserve mental effort, mental energy. It isn't bad. In fact, autopilot and addressing stress is adaptive. It's helpful. We are built for that in some way. We've evolved to be on autopilot, so things are more efficient. The problem is autopilot often prioritizes quite naturally problem solving. We kick into problem solving mode. We want to finish the task. We're driven to do that. We want to reduce any immediate discomfort that we're experiencing. But with all of that going on, we've shifted away from nurturing the relationship. we often kick into the me rather than pouring into the we, right? The relationship. Normal, just not real helpful over time. So autopilot does save energy, but unfortunately, it can also really deplete probably the greatest resource that we have in our lives. From an evolutionary standpoint, we say that the brain kind of is focused on two things for survival. One is threat. If there's any threat, it gets attention. The other one is resources. And those resources are one of those resources. In fact, probably the most significant, important of those resources is connecting with others, connecting with safe others that we trust, etc. Okay, so connection is that great resource when we're under stress, but often under stress, we disconnect. You see the problem. That's the hidden cost of autopilot. I mean, if you think about it, every relationship, kind of like a car, every relationship requires some kind of fuel. It does require some energy. The question is whether that fuel is going to be used. It is the question is, are we driving efficiently? Some examples might be if we go, oh, I'll talk tomorrow about it, or I'm exhausted right now. I know that they love me. We'll reconnect after I'm finished with this project. Those are small, almost imperceptible, but sometimes felt withdrawals from the relationship, progressively resulting in disconnection. Over weeks, over months, the reservoir shrinks. Then the way to think about this, at least for me, is that when we're in that autopilot, of just focusing on the threats and trying to get over them through, just by sheer effort and energy. Being on that autopilot saves a little energy today. Unfortunately, it will create a much larger energy bill tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how this relates to research. Connection itself, as I said, can become a resource and is a resource if we stay connected. It isn't simply pleasant to be connected. Yeah, it can be pleasant, not always, but it can be pleasant and we get enjoyment out of connection. But it also reduces the cost of carrying stress in those times when we are experiencing stress. The connection can help there. So it's pleasant, but the deeper issue is that it helps us deal with stress. And that's because of what's going on within the brain. It's very simple. Threat narrows our attention. Habits, rather than being intentional about our life, dominate. Curiosity about the other one often decreases. Problem solving can increase and shift us away from the relationship. And relationships require shifting our attention to something else, what I call shifting toward the we. Connection requires some very clear things that I think we can introduce into the relationship when we're experiencing relationship drift or couples drift or marital drift. Connection requires being aware, noticing what's going on, and noticing the disconnection. Shifting from autopilot to being very intentional about perceiving what is going on in the relationship. This is very important. And here's how I describe that sequence. First, we notice what is going on. We notice the small ways in which disconnection is occurring. Then we pause. We don't get frantic. We pause and we think about it. Pause. And then we make a choice. This is where intentionality comes in. We make a choice. And what is the choice? To take one step to connect. Now, I know that's kind of vague, so we'll look at that in a little more concretely here in a few moments. But I do want to say this, intentionality, when people hear, you're going to need to be intentional about it, you're going, are you kidding? And now I have to add that to all of the things that I'm doing. I have to be intentional. And so that is a way to think about it, but I don't think it's a really helpful way to think about it, because that kind of begins to see as intentionality about the relationship as a burden. It's often, however, the more energy efficient path toward relationship repair. And relationship repair is important because we are investing in the greatest resource that we have to deal with stress that we experience within our environment. At first, let's be honest, intentionality does require some effort because it's a proactive choice. It's a shift from what we're normally doing as we're just going about life on autopilot. Eventually, however, intentionality, if we do it repeatedly, becomes a habit. It becomes the new autopilot. Healthy habits become the new autopilot. So the goal isn't to eliminate autopilot. The goal is to build an autopilot, habitual system that naturally moves you toward connecting with the one you love. Now, I think another addition that I would want to throw into this consideration is where I normally go. I really enjoy rational emotive behavioral therapy. It's not the only therapy that I use, or the interventions from REBT are not the only interventions I use. But what I really do like about that model is that it helps me identify some common beliefs, common thoughts that pop up. In REBT, they may call them irrational or dysfunctional. I call them unhelpful. They're normal, they're natural, they're just unhelpful. And we all have them, and they can disrupt the connection and relationship. One of the big ones is, I just don't have time. I've got a lot to do right now. I have got a full plate. I don't have the time to invest in that. Or I'll just do it later. I can't do it right now. It's too much right now. I will do it later. Or, my spouse or my partner should know that I want to connect with them. They should automatically know that. Or if you're on the other end of it, I shouldn't have to ask for time to get connected with my partner. I shouldn't have to ask. All of those in REBT, they would call them irrational or dysfunctional. Again, I say unhelpful because if we act upon those, we act in ways that do not move us toward connection, and that's problematical. So what do? We challenge those beliefs, each and every one of them. And I think we can challenge it in pretty simple ways. Ask yourself, or have your clients ask themselves the question, does that belief that you're holding right now, it's too much, I don't have the time, they should know, does that belief move you toward connection or away from the connection? Is it moving you toward investing in the relationship or away from it? Investing in the job, but not the relationship. Investing in a hobby, but not the relationship, okay? So is it moving you toward connection or away from the relationship that you really, really want, right? So you got to figure out, what is it, the kind of relationship you want? I'm going to get to that in a minute. Or, in acceptance and commitment therapy, they would let us know that, let's be aware that stress is present, that maybe fatigue is present, disappointment is present. They may not challenge it. They may sit with it, become aware of it, don't run away from it, and but to realize that, you know what, your values are still present. The values that you had about why you wanted to be in the relationship may still be present. They may be dormant. You may not be acting upon them, right? So have that kind of awareness. And then ask what I consider to be a fundamental question for all of us who are in a relationship, who have partners or spouses or whatever. And it is, given who I want to be as a partner today, what is one small step? What is one small action that I can take? Don't wait to feel connected. Make one action today toward the relationship. Albert Ellis, the founder of Rational Motor Behavioral Therapy and my mentor, said, it's simple, but it's so wise. It sometimes is easier to act your way into a feeling than feel your way into an action. It's maybe easier to take a step into the relationship now rather than wait for the feel until you feel like taking a step. That feeling like you want to take the step or feeling motivated to take the step may take a while, but you can always just take a small step toward being the person who you want to be within the relationship. So I kind of call this a booster shot. Notice that when you've gone into autopilot and you're just living the life. Sometimes it feels like, wow, this is like an endless cycle of acting upon the gerbil wheel. Notice that you've gone into autopilot. Just pause. Just pause for 30 seconds and become aware of that lived reality. And then remember the relationship you want. Not merely the problem that you're trying to solve, but the relationship that you want. A lot of people say, I want to focus on solving our poor communication. Well, I understand that, and it's certainly valuable to change poor communication, but sometimes repairing that relationship and getting reconnected helps that communication. The communication often doesn't go real well when we're feeling utterly disconnected. So remember the relationship you want, not merely the problem you're trying to solve. Move one step toward connecting. Let me give you some examples. And they don't have to be big. A lot of people make them a mountain when they're really not a mountain. Just asking a genuine question. How did that interview go today? How did it feel while you're in the middle of it, right? So some curiosity question. A genuine one. Excuse me. Express appreciation. Thanks so much, for going and picking that up at the store for me. You knew I was just in over my head. So thanks so much. I really do appreciate that. Or maybe it's a brief hug. Doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it's when your partner is sharing something with you, you stop and you look at them in the eyes. Shift away from your cell phone. Shift away from whatever you're doing. Close the cover of the computer and look them in the eyes while you're talking. And then maybe you share a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. Take a short walk together, right? A lot of times we do that early in relationships, but then we drift away from that. Or ask, how are you doing today? Really, genuinely, how are you doing? These are not grand gestures. They're tiny investments in the relationship. And tiny investments in the relationship, done over time repeatedly, increase trust and connection. Because often when we're disconnected, the trust takes a dive. Okay, so these tiny investments can be really, really helpful. So as we close, I want you to kind of realize that relationships always require fuel. They always do require energy. The goal is not to avoid spending energy and just be doing nothing. It's to spend that energy wisely. Small investments in connection often save enormous amounts of energy later because they remind us that we don't have to carry life's burdens all alone. Stress invites autopilot. Love invites intentionality. Every day we have opportunities, sometimes only very small ones, in which we can choose which invitation we are going to accept. And the wise one is invest in the relationship, not in a huge way, in one small, obtainable step. I thank you very much. You may see scrolling on the, on the screen, a mention of harmonious love. I was so fortunate to work with a studio.com, a fantastic company. And I built out an app in collaboration with them that focuses on this very issue that I'm talking about, repairing disconnection, repairing conflict that contributes to disconnection in relationship. Right now, they're having a big discount. I think it just launched this week, and they're taking 20% off or something like this. So it's really affordable, and you can use it. You get all kinds of things to do and learn every day, and it's really an investment in the relationship. I just had a therapist contact me this morning and said, would this be a good adjunctive to therapy? And I went, that's the way to think about this. The app is not therapy itself, but it can help individuals have some things to do that build the relationship, the very thing that I've been talking about day by day by day. We may be able to see them once a week, right? But this will help them day by day by day. So thank you all very much. I do want to express my appreciation for those of you who came. And if you have any questions, comments, feel free to let me know. And you can always do that through my YouTube channel, Psychotherapy Education and Training. And again, I want to thank Mike, our new member to that channel. And if no questions, I want to wish you all a fantastic day and great, satisfying, and healthy relationships. Have a great day. Bye-bye.